You will kill your negative thinking. Marcus Aurelius Stoicism Legends. Hey guys, tonight we journey through the landscape of your own mind, where storms brew not in the skies, but between your ears. You sit there now, lights low, the faint hum of the world softening. But inside, it's rarely ever that quiet, is it? Thoughts circling like vultures, sharp memories cutting in, that cold whisper reminding you of every single thing that went wrong. You try to relax, but it drifts in, uninvited, unannounced. That old, familiar presence, negativity, and here's the raw truth. You probably won't survive this if you keep thinking the way you've always thought. If you let the default wiring rule your reality, you won't grow. Not because life is cruel, but because your mind has become your cage. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop your location and local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge through your daily life unaware that your heaviest burden isn't your schedule or your responsibilities. It's the thoughts you've allowed to sit unchallenged. You may not even notice how often your mind returns to fear, doubt, resentment, or complaint. That's the nature of automatic negativity. It's like a low-grade fever, easy to ignore, but slowly weakening your resilience. Negativity is easy. It slips into your tone, your posture, your expectations. It shapes how you speak to yourself. You don't even realize it's happening until the world starts to look darker. Not because the light has gone, but because you've pulled the blinds in your mind. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor who ruled a vast, turbulent empire, wrote in the dead of night, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't offering a motivational poster quote. He was diagnosing the core disease. We suffer not because life is cruel, but because we believe every pessimistic whisper in our own head. That's the trap. The thoughts aren't the problem. Believing them is. Obeying them is. Letting them narrate your life without a second glance is. Historians and Stoic intellectuals still argue whether Marcus wrote his meditations to teach others or simply to remind himself again and again not to drown in his own mind. That's how persistent negativity is. Even an emperor needed reminders. And so do you. You say things like, "I always mess this up," or "No one ever listens to me," or "This is just how I am." These are not facts. They're stories you've told yourself so many times that they sound like truth. They've become your emotional wallpaper. But you can peel it back, Seneca warned. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. And yet, how little we investigate that imagination. We let it run riot. Fantasies of disaster, scenarios of rejection, invented betrayals. We suffer them long before they happen, and sometimes they never even do. Why? Because you haven't trained your mind to question them. You haven't hit pause and said, "Wait, is that even true? Let's do something together right now." Name one negative belief you've had about yourself for years. Maybe it's "I'm not good enough," or "people always leave," or "nothing ever goes right." You've probably carried it like luggage through every relationship, every decision, every failure. You think you're being cautious or realistic, but that belief is a cage. A comfort-colored one, maybe, but a cage nonetheless. That here's your first real act of rebellion. Don't justify it. Interrogate it. Where did it come from? Who gave it to you? A parent? A teacher? A past failure? Is it even yours? Now ask, is it helping me? Does it guide you towards strength or pull you back into the dark? Because even if it feels familiar, that doesn't make it useful. Some thoughts wear the clothes of protection but are really prison guards in disguise. This is where Stoicism isn't just philosophy. It's a weapon, a daily practice. You don't kill negativity by arguing with it. You kill it by watching it, calmly, without panic. You say, there you are again. You note the pattern. You recognize the emotion before it hijacks your judgment. Try this. For the next week, carry a journal. Every time a negative thought surfaces about yourself, about someone else, about the world, write it down. Don't edit. Don't soften it. Just get it out. Then categorize it. Was it fear? Comparison? Regret? Envy? Later, revisit the entries. Which of these thoughts were based on facts? Which were just interpretations? And which were inherited? That's how you expose the machinery. That's how you disarm the bomb before it detonates. The Stoics didn't preach blind positivity. They didn't say, just think happy thoughts. They said, become a master of your own impressions. They knew that every negative thought that goes unexamined plants a seed of suffering. So you observe. You write. You breathe. And slowly, your mind begins to change. You stop reacting. You start responding. You feel bitterness rise. And instead of writing it, you watch it. You catch yourself mid-sarcasm and redirect. You notice resentment curling up like smoke. And instead of letting it fill the room, you open the mental window. Remember, you are not your thoughts. You are the one watching them. You are not the storm. You are the sky. Every time you break the cycle, every time you pause, reflect, and choose, you become stronger. You shift the default setting. You cut through the fog. You don't need a complete overhaul tonight. You need one interruption, one breath, one moment of clarity where chaos once ruled. And this is where it begins. You wake up and check your phone. A delay in plans, a curt message, a missed email. Immediately, your mind begins to write the story. They're annoyed at me. I've failed already. Why does this always happen to me? And just like that, the day hasn't even started, but your mind is already miles ahead, writing a tragedy out of blank pages. This is how negative thinking thrives, not in truth, but in perception. It's not what happens, it's what you think it means. Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This isn't just a nice quote to pin on your fridge. This is your blueprint for mental freedom. It's the battle cry of those who refuse to be victims of their first impressions. Your mind isn't neutral. It interprets everything, glances, words, delays, silence. A friend replies late. Your brain says, they must be mad. You forget a deadline. I'm incompetent. Someone succeeds while you struggle. I'll never get there. These aren't facts. These are interpretations. Stories you've created on autopilot. And most of them, if we're honest, are pretty dark. The Stoics were brutal editors of their own narratives. They would slice through the noise with the blade of logic. When Marcus Aurelius was facing mutiny or plague, he didn't say, "This is unfair." He asked, "What does this demand of me?" He rewrote, "Every hardship is training." That's not delusion. That's discipline. Historians still debate whether Marcus's Stoicism came naturally or was painfully cultivated through repetition. But the journals he left behind are proof of how seriously he took perception. He didn't trust his first thought. He challenged it. You must learn to do the same. Take a moment to consider this. What if that rude message wasn't about you? What if the traffic jam wasn't a cosmic punishment? What if the rejection wasn't a verdict, but a redirection? Rewiring your mind doesn't start by changing what happens to you. It starts by changing what you see. Imagine a child drawing a monster under their bed. The fear feels real, but the monster is just a shadow. Your negative perception works the same way. You fill the gaps with assumptions. You assign intentions that may not exist. You give power to moments that don't deserve it. The Stoics understood this mental trap. They knew perception is not passive. It's an active process, filtered through your fears, past wounds, and expectations. So they train like warriors. They challenged their first reaction and chose a second one grounded in reason that it's not about pretending everything is fine. It's about seeing what is without the emotional fog. That's where power lives. When the fog lifts, you realize most events are neutral. A rejection is just a result. A delay is just time. A failure is just feedback. They gain meaning only when you give it to them. And that's the key. You assign meaning. Like an artist, choosing the palette, you can shade events in panic or in poise. This isn't easy. Your brain is wired to panic. It evolved to predict threats, to avoid pain, to remember the hurt. That's how your ancestors survived. But survival is no longer the goal. Now, it's about living. And living well requires more than primal instincts. So, when you feel the panic rising, pause. Ask, what really happened here? And what story am I telling myself about it? Let's say you're overlooked for a promotion. Your default story might be, I'm not good enough. They don't value me. But a Stoic reframes it. This moment is not a measure of my worth. It's a test of my direction. What can I learn? How can I grow stronger? You begin to assign meaning from a place of strength, not self-pity. And when you do this consistently, something incredible happens. You stop spiraling. You stop blaming. You start building. That missed opportunity, it becomes a path to patience. That rejection, an invitation to recalibrate. That failure, a blueprint for growth. The mind is plastic. It reshapes itself through repetition. If you feed it new stories, clearer stories, stronger stories, it will eventually stop defaulting to doom. But this takes training. Just like a muscle, your perception sharpens through daily effort. Try this tonight. Before bed, replay your day and find one moment where you jump to a negative conclusion. Pause there. Strip the event of its emotion. Just list the facts. Then ask, what else could this mean? Maybe the silence wasn't anger, it was exhaustion. Maybe the mistake wasn't incompetence, it was inattention. Maybe the delay wasn't rejection, it was redirection. This is how you build clarity. Not by changing the world, but by changing your lens. Not by ignoring pain, but by placing it in context. The Stoics knew that adversity is not the enemy. Reaction is. They faced loss, betrayal, and upheaval, but still wrote about dignity, gratitude, and strength. They refused to let fear write their scripts, and that's your task now. To become the author, not the character. To step back from your thoughts and say, this is not how the story ends. I choose what this means. And each time you do, each reframed moment is a brick in the foundation of a new mind. A mind that does not crumble at setbacks, but absorbs them like a ship riding waves. You build this mind with patience, with pause, with practice, and when you do, you no longer flinch at disruption. You welcome it as a teacher. You no longer resent resistance. You greet it as a trainer, because you've learned the art of Stoic alchemy, turning every obstacle into opportunity. Tonight, as you lie there in the quiet, think of one moment that shook you today. One moment where your mind filled in the blanks with fear. Now rewrite it. Frame it through reason. And know that in doing so, you are not just rewriting your day. You are reshaping your mind. It starts in the chest. That tightening, the surge of heat behind your eyes, the quickening of breath. Anger, fear, envy, shame, emotions crashing in, like a rogue wave, drowning reason before it even has a chance to swim. You know the feeling. You've ridden it before. Maybe today, maybe 1,000 times before. You said something you regretted. You lashed out. You spiraled. And when the wave passed, you were left with the wreckage. This is the emotional hijack. And if you're going to kill your negative thinking, you must reclaim the wheel before the storm hits. The Stoics never said emotions were bad. They said emotions are poor leaders. Left untrained, they hijack your logic, obscure your clarity, and override your values with the brute force of momentary intensity. Marcus Aurelius, ruler of an empire and father to wars, famines, and betrayals, wrote, "It's not manly to be enraged. It's childish, not because emotion is weakness, but because unchecked emotion makes us weak." Anger, for instance, feels powerful, but it clouds judgment, it rushes the tongue, it poisons the heart. Fear pretends to protect, but it distorts reality, saps courage, and makes you smaller. Historians still debate how much of Marcus's restraint came from temperament or from training. But his journals are clear. He trained. Constantly. Repeatedly. Because emotion never stops knocking, and unchecked, it always wants to drive. When you're in that state, heart pounding, thoughts racing, it's nearly impossible to hear reason. That's why the Stoics practice the pause. Right here is where your work begins. The moment before the reaction, the breath before the blow, the gap between the trigger and the word. That space is everything. You must stretch that space. You must protect it like sacred ground. Because in that tiny pause lies the difference between who you've been and who you are becoming. What do you do in that pause? First, breathe. Not shallow, anxious gasps, but deep, deliberate inhales. Feel your body. Anchor yourself in the physical. Because when emotions hijack your mind, the body becomes your tether back to earth. Second, name the emotion. Not I am angry, but anger is present. This language matters. It creates separation. You are not the storm. You are the observer of it. You say, "This is frustration. It's rising. It's loud, but it's not permanent. Like a wave, it will crest. Like thunder, it will pass." Naming it steals its power to disguise itself as truth. Then speak the internal mantra. This is a sensation, not a command. That line, simple, quiet, is your sword. It's what turns you from a victim of emotion into its master. Anger does not mean you must shout. Fear does not mean you must run. Envy does not mean you must spiral. Emotion is information, not instruction. Epictetus warned. No man is free who is not master of himself. Emotional freedom isn't about numbness. It's about sovereignty. It's about being able to feel the full weather of your inner world and still decide where you walk. And you don't build this in a single night. You build it with daily drills, repetitions of restraint. You practice in silence so you're ready in the storm. Modern life doesn't make this easy. The world demands fast responses, instant takes, and knee-jerk emotion. You're praised for clapping back, rewarded for reacting quickly, and encouraged to voice every feeling immediately. But the Stoic resists that rhythm. The Stoic waits, not out of weakness, but strength. You become strong not when you shout over the noise, but when you carry silence like a shield. When you delay your reply long enough for wisdom to enter the room. That's power. Quiet power. Practice it tomorrow. When someone irritates you, pause. 10 seconds. That's it. Don't flinch. Don't defend. Just breathe. Ask, is this emotion leading me or misleading me? You'll feel the urge to speak, to explain, to lash out. Let it pass. Watch it like a wave from the shore. You'll find something strange happens. The urgency dies. The storm weakens. Because most emotions, when enacted on, lose their grip. Seneca reminded us. Anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it. Think about that. It's not the insult. It's the overreaction. It's not the fear. It's the paralysis. It's not the envy. It's the story we spin about our worth. Emotional hijack is not just chaos. It's memory. Your brain records what you do when emotion surges. If you yell, flee, spiral, that becomes the neural path. And the more you walk it, the easier it gets. But the Stoic rewires the path. Each pause is a new trail. Each breath is a new footstep. Each decision to wait is a quiet revolution. It doesn't feel dramatic. It won't earn applause. But this inner restraint is how you build mental muscle. The kind of muscle that holds when the world tugs, when provocation rises, when the emotional wind howls through your ribs. And one day, without thinking, you'll find yourself facing conflict with calm. You'll hear your own angry thoughts and simply smile at their old tricks. You'll feel the urge to panic and answer instead with patience. And you'll realize you've become someone else, someone sovereign, someone still. This isn't the story of suppression. This is the story of refinement, of evolution, of stepping out of the noise and into command. Tonight, close your eyes and remember one moment today when emotion pulled you hard. A jab from someone, a fear that rose, a wave of comparison. Replay it. Watch the moment you reacted. Then imagine, what if you'd paused? What if you had waited? What if you had breathed? The difference wouldn't have just been in what you did. It would have been in who you were becoming. This practice, done quietly, changes everything. The outside world won't know, but inside you'll know. You didn't flinch. You stood still. And in that stillness, you became freed. There's a voice in your head. You know the one. It's there when you wake up and scroll through other people's lives. It's there when you hesitate before speaking. It's there when something goes wrong, whispering, "See, I told you you'd fail." It is persistent. It is convincing. And worst of all, it sounds like you. But here's the truth that changes everything. That voice in your head is not your master. It's not even always your own. It's a collection of echoes, parents, teachers, bullies, society. Replayed so often, you stopped noticing the loop. But tonight, you do notice. And from tonight on, that voice loses power. Marcus Aurelius wrote, The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. So why do we let our minds soak in poison? Why do we sit quietly while our inner voice tears us down like a hostile witness cross-examining us in court? The Stoics didn't accept every thought as gospel. They were skeptics, especially of themselves. That voice, the one that says, "You're not good enough. You'll never be anything. They don't respect you," needs interrogation, not obedience. Epictetus would have raised an eyebrow and said, "Where's your evidence?" Historians still question whether Stoic thinkers like Epictetus and Seneca fully lived their own teachings. But what no one questions is their relentless commitment to challenging thought, to asking, "What do I really know? And where did that knowing come from?" You must do the same. Every time the voice arises, ask, "Who said that? What proof do they have? Why am I believing this?" Don't respond with aggression. Don't fight fire with fire. Respond with curiosity, not like a soldier, but like a scientist. And often, you'll find this: the voice isn't even yours. It's the criticism of a disappointed parent, the judgment of a culture that equates worth with productivity, the sarcasm of a peer who once belittled your dream. These voices were absorbed, replayed, internalized. You mistook the recording for reality. But now you get to draw a line. You start saying, "This thought lives in my mind, but it does not own it." You create a gap, a boundary, a sacred distance between thought and identity. "I feel like I'm a failure" becomes "I'm noticing." A thought that says I'm a failure, that one step is freedom. Because thoughts are not facts. They're just sparks in the brain, some fueled by truth, most ignited by fear, fatigue, or years of unchecked habit. You are not your thoughts. You are the one watching them. The thinker, the gatekeeper the next time the voice says, "You're behind. You're not enough. You're unwanted." Ask it, says who? Ask, "Is that true? Or is that just an old script?" Then go deeper. Ask, "If I didn't believe this voice, what would I do differently right now?" This is how you disarm the critic. You don't argue with it, you outgrow it. You let it speak, but you don't let it steer. You let it echo, but you don't let it define. Over time, something powerful happens. The voice gets quieter, not because it disappears, but because you stop feeding it. Thoughts need belief to survive. Without your belief, they wither. That it's like a radio in the background. It keeps playing, but you no longer dance to its song, and soon, that energy, once used for self-judgment, becomes fuel. You redirect it. You begin to choose what thoughts stay and what thoughts go. Negative thinking says, "I'll never be able to do this." Your Stoic voice responds, "Let's find out." The critic says, "They're all better than you." You respond, "That thought doesn't serve me. I choose my own path." The liar says, "You'll fail again." You whisper, "Then I'll learn again." You don't have to believe everything you think. That's the gate to freedom. Try this tomorrow. Every time a critical thought arises, talk back. Literally, out loud if you must. Respond as a wise friend would. You'll feel silly at first, but eventually, you'll feel powerful. Some thoughts are just noise. Others are outdated fears. Some are memories replaying without permission. And some are simply the result of exhaustion. You don't have to argue. You just need to observe. Watch your thoughts like a monk watches the fire. Flickers of flame. You see them. You feel their warmth. But you don't flinch. You don't jump in, you sit with them. And in that space, you master them. When you can hear a thought and not follow it, you are free. When you can feel a doubt and not obey it, you are strong. When you can witness your mind racing and choose not to chase it, you are sovereign. This is the deepest Stoic practice: detachment from inner noise and return to inner stillness. Marcus Aurelius asked himself daily, "Does this thought serve my character?" And if the answer was no, he let it go. Do the same. Start small, one thought at a time. Refuse to be a sponge that absorbs every inner word. Be the lighthouse, still, anchored, watching the storm, but never sinking to join it. This is your quiet revolution. You no longer live by default thoughts. You live by chosen ones. The world may still shout, but inside, you're calm. The old voice may echo, but you're not listening, because you are no longer a servant to that voice. You are the author now. You want to kill your negative thinking? Then train like it's war. Because it is. This isn't a metaphor. Your mind is a battlefield. Every day you wake up, thoughts march in, some loyal, some sabotaging, some dressed in the armor of reason, others cloaked in doubt, shame, fear, and chaos. And unless you're training, unless you're strengthening the forces of clarity and discipline, those invaders win. Discipline is not a punishment. It's protection. It's not about restriction. It's about readiness. You don't train for the days when life is calm. You train for the days when it isn't. The Stoics knew this. They weren't philosophers in ivory towers. They were warriors of thought. They rehearsed hardship, practiced stillness, conditioned their minds like athletes condition their bodies. Why? Because life is heavy and untrained minds collapse under weight. Marcus Aurelius journaled every night, not because he needed therapy, but because he was sharpening his blade. He questioned his anger. He dissected his ego. He clarified his intentions. It was mental weightlifting. Epictetus taught his students to challenge first impressions, to meet each thought with scrutiny, because he knew that the first thought often lies. He knew that the battle begins not in action, but in perception. And Seneca? He didn't just preach detachment. He practiced discomfort. He walked barefoot in winter, fasted without complaint, wore rough clothes, all to remind himself, comfort is not strength. Rehearsed hardship makes real hardship survivable. Modern minds shy from this. We want ease. We wait for motivation. But motivation is fickle. Discipline is forged. Historians sometimes debate whether these Stoic habits were performative or deeply personal, but their consistency tells us one thing: they took training seriously. They knew the mind would not grow stronger through intention alone. It required repetition, and so must you. Your negative thinking doesn't need a crisis to rise. It sneaks in through silence. It slips into your morning scroll, your careless moments, your tired evenings. It doesn't barge in, it leaks in. Through self-pity, through comparison, through unchecked thoughts that become patterns that become your identity. So you must meet this enemy with structure. Start with a daily drill. Each morning, read one Stoic quote. Not 10, just one. Let it settle into your bones. Meditate for 5 minutes. No music, just breath. Watch your thoughts rise like bubbles. Don't chase. Don't judge. Journal one thought you will reframe today. Just one. Write down the lie and then rewrite the truth. This is not busy work. This is your armory. Each step builds a system, a default pattern, a mental shield. When you skip it, it shows. The spiral starts sooner. the reaction comes faster. The doubt sinks deeper. Because without training, negativity finds the gaps. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be consistent, and throughout your day, train. When a negative thought arises, don't run. Pause. Dissect. Interrogate. When you feel comparison burning your peace, return to your values. When self-doubt creeps in, speak back with truth, and at night, reflect. Not just what happened today, but what did I learn about my mind? Which thoughts were strong? Which ones deceived me? Which patterns still trip me up? This nightly reflection isn't indulgence. It's intel. It's reconnaissance. It teaches you your battlefield. It shows you where you need more strength. And here's the hardest truth. Negative thinking doesn't die dramatically. It dies slowly, silently, in 1,000 small refusals. You don't kill it with one grand act of confidence. You kill it with small, repeated acts of clarity. It dies when you reframe one anxious thought, when you breathe through one reaction, when you journal one toxic loop, when you speak one truth to your inner critic. These acts seem small. They are not. They are sacred. They are rewiring your brain moment by moment. They are creating new grooves in your thinking. And over time, what once pulled you down now becomes the resistance that strengthens you. Every time you interrupt the spiral, you change your future self. Every time you choose clarity over chaos, you become less reactive and more resilient. Negativity doesn't vanish. It starves. And eventually, it gets quieter. Not because the world gets easier, but because you get stronger. This is the same discipline the Stoics trained with. Not flamboyant, not performative. Quiet, daily, personal. A creed they lived by, not shouted but practiced. And it's not just about escaping negativity. It's about building an identity that thrives above it. You become someone who no longer panics at resistance, but welcomes it. You don't ask, why is this happening to me? You ask, what virtue is being trained right now? You treat the moment of frustration as a dojo, the insult as a test of dignity, the setback as a sharpening stone. This is the gym of the Stoic mind. Every negative impulse is your weight too. Lift, not because you're weak, but because you are becoming strong. So start small. One thought, one breath, one act of reframing, and then repeat. And in time, that repetition becomes identity. You won't even notice at first, but others will. You'll handle delays differently. You'll listen without ego. You'll speak with calm in the face of chaos, because your mind won't be a battlefield anymore. It will be a fortress. Negative thinking doesn't begin with a single thought. It begins with a story, a whispered narrative looping quietly in your head. I'm not enough. People always leave. Everything good slips away. These aren't just thoughts. They're scripts. And without even realizing it, you've memorized your lines. You perform them daily. You let them shape your expectations, your tone, your posture, your self-worth, and most dangerously, you mistake the script for your identity. But here's what the Stoics knew, and what you must now begin to practice. Starve the story. Feed the truth. Marcus Aurelius, writing late into the night, asked himself, is this essential? You must ask yourself a sharper version. Is this true? Because the story that you're not lovable, it may feel familiar, but that doesn't make it accurate. The story that you'll always be behind, it may echo loudly in your brain, but that doesn't mean it deserves your belief. The Stoics believed in truth. Not the kind whispered by the ego, but the kind discovered through disciplined inquiry. They knew perception was fragile, memory even more so, and that emotion, unchecked, would distort reality into a weapon. That's why they trained the mind, not to suppress, but to purify. Modern psychologists and ancient Stoic scholars alike still debate the overlap between narrative identity and lived experience. But even in those academic disagreements, one truth remains. When you change your internal narrative, you change how you lived at let's start right now. Pick a story, a repeated mental loop. Maybe it's, I mess everything up. No one really sees me. I'll never succeed. Write it down, literally. Then dissect it like a Stoic surgeon. Ask, what are the objective facts? What am I assuming? What am I exaggerating? Who first taught me this story? Would I say it to someone I love? Because chances are, what you're calling truth is just repetition. Familiarity masquerading as fact. The Stoics didn't indulge drama. They chose clarity. The kind of clarity that says, this thought may feel real, but if it does not serve my virtue, it must go. Seneca put it plainly, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. And if imagination is the source of so much pain, then your job is not to feed it, but to filter it. Imagine you're a craftsman. Each thought, each story is a tool. Would you keep a blade that cuts you every time you use it? No, you'd sharpen it or discard it. Your story should sharpen you, not wound you. Let's say your story is, I always get left behind. Ask, is that true every time? Likely not. Dig deeper. Do I confuse being left out with not being chosen? Reframe. Some people walk away, others stay. I cannot let the ones who left define my worth. Then plant a new truth. I am worth keeping, and the right ones will see it. Another example, the story, I'm always behind. The truth, I'm judging my progress against someone else's timeline. New frame, I am moving forward. Maybe not fast, but forward. This is the practice. You don't silence the inner drama, you replace it. Not with sweet lies, but with grounded truth. Each time you catch a lie, correct it. Each time you feel the script cueing your lines, rewrite it. Eventually, the new script becomes your rhythm. The false voice stars from neglect. The loop slows. The storm stills. And in its place, space, clarity, peace. You must be ruthless. Stoic. Clarity is not soft. It doesn't say be nice to yourself. It says be honest. Be discerning. Be your own editor. Ask yourself, would I keep this thought if it belonged to someone else? Would you adopt someone else's shame? Their fear? Their inherited limitations? No? Then why carry your own as if it were sacred? It's not sacred. It's just stale. The Stoics didn't fear pain. They feared self-deception. They knew the greatest suffering came not from the world, but from stories left unchallenged. Your job now is simple. Turn detective. Become a mental minimalist. Every thought must earn its place. Every story must pass inspection. Try this. For 1 week, post 3 truths on your wall. They must challenge your favorite negative story. Let them interrupt the loop. For example, if your story is, I always fail, your 3 truths might be, I've succeeded at many small things. Failure is not the same as incompetence. That I am still learning. And that's enough. Let these truths become your new affirmations. Not fluff, but facts. And repeat them often. Why? Because the brain doesn't care about truth, it cares about repetition. That's how the false story took hold in the first place. So now you outtrain it. Feed the truth until it becomes louder than the lie. Eventually, you'll notice the shift. Your voice will change. You'll narrate your life differently. Not with drama, but with calm. Not with fear, but with precision that you'll move through the world less like a wounded animal and more like a grounded architect building your identity. One clear thought at a time, and that's what you're doing. Right now, with each reframed sentence, with each skeptical glance toward your old stories, you are reclaiming authorship because your story is not finished. And from this moment on, you decide what the next line will be. You give away your power, more than you realize. Sometimes it's in a single scroll. Sometimes it's when you replay a comment from a stranger you'll never meet again. Or when one person's disapproval haunts your whole week. It happens when you let someone's glance, someone's silence, someone's opinion define how you feel about yourself. That's the quiet theft of negative thinking, the outsourcing of your worth. And the Stoics would call it what it is, slavery of the soul. Epictetus said it plainly. Don't give circumstances the power to rouse anger. That power is reserved for reason alone, which means every time you let someone's reaction, or lack thereof, ruin your peace, you've handed over the keys to your mind that lets sit with that. Your worth is not a community vote. It's not something you barter in exchange for validation. Yet so often, we walk through life negotiating with ghosts, trying to impress people who aren't watching, earn praise from people who don't understand, or win back approval we never had to seek in the first place. You look at your phone, wait for a message that doesn't come, and suddenly the story begins. They must be done with me. You post something, get silence, and decide, I must not be interesting enough. That's how it happens. Not in earthquakes, but in the slow erosion of self-trust. The Stoics saw through this. They didn't ask for applause. They asked only one question: is this virtuous? Because for them, virtue, not popularity, not success, was the only true measure of worth. Historians still examine whether Epictetus, born a slave, truly lived in complete emotional freedom. But what's clear is that he believed in reclaiming the inner kingdom, that the greatest freedom wasn't physical, philosophical, the ability to govern your mind. You need to reclaim that kingdom too. Here's where you begin. Stop trading your value for someone else's reaction. Just stop. Easier said than done? Of course. That's why it's practice, not perfection. Think about it. Why do you let certain opinions matter? Have you ever paused and asked, would I trade lives with this person? If the answer is no, then why would you trust them with your emotional weather? Try this exercise. For 1 week, let that be your filter. If someone offers criticism, judgment, dismissal, ask yourself, would I trade lives with them? Not in terms of success or wealth, but in terms of values, virtue, peace of mind. That if the answer is no, their opinion should not weigh more than a leaf on your path. This is reclaiming your inner authority, not by silencing the world, but by raising your own voice above it. You were not made to be ruled by whispers. You were not meant to be shaken by shadows. You were born to stand with a spine aligned to your values, unmoved by passing storms. And here's where it gets deeper. You must also stop asking for permission to believe in yourself, and no more waiting for someone to say, you're worthy. No more hoping someone notices before you act. That's the child in you. still hoping the world will affirm what you're afraid to declare. But the Stoic says, declare it anyway. Virtue doesn't ask for applause. It speaks in how you carry yourself. It's in your posture when no one's looking, your integrity when no one praises you, your calm in the storm no one understands. That's what makes you powerful, not who claps for you, but who you are when no one claps at all. So draw your line. Choose what you will allow in and what you won't. That's your job now. To build mental boundaries as strong as any wall. Not to shut the world out, but to protect what is sacred inside. Here's how you begin. Set a new internal policy. My self-worth is not up for negotiation. Journal 3 ways you've let someone else's opinion determine your behavior. Reframe them. Reclaim them. Say, that moment is no longer the author of my identity. Practice solitude, not as loneliness, but as leadership. The kind of quiet where you sit with yourself and realize, I am not broken. I am simply done outsourcing my sovereignty, because that's what you're doing now. You are becoming sovereign again, and soon, something remarkable will happen. When someone criticizes you, you'll listen, not absorb. When someone praises you, you'll appreciate, not depend. When someone rejects you, you'll feel it, but you won't fall, because your roots no longer grow in external soil. They grow inward, in principle, in values, in self-command. The voice that once needed others to say you matter now whispers to itself, I do. And that's not arrogance. That's earned dignity. It's the result of choosing to anchor your identity not in echoes, but in essence. So tonight, as you lie still, repeat this in your mind. I am not what they say. I am not what they see. I am what I choose to carry. With discipline and clarity. Let that truth sit in your chest like a stone of calm. Heavy, centered, unmoved. Because you are done letting strangers dictate your weather. You are reclaiming your sky. You feel it before it speaks. That inward tug, the subtle ache that whispers, don't bother. You're going to fail anyway. What's the point? It doesn't shout. It slinks in like fog, soft but heavy. It speaks in delays, in distractions, in that sudden. Need to check your phone or clean the kitchen when you're supposed to be doing something that matters. That's resistance. That it's not fear, not doubt, not fatigue. It's all of them, woven together in a cloak that keeps you from action. And it is one of the most lethal forms of negative thinking, because it feels logical, sensible, even protective, but it's a lie. The Stoics had another word for it, obstacle. And they didn't fear it, they used it. Marcus Aurelius, amid plagues, betrayal, and political unrest, wrote one of the most empowering lines in Stoic literature. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Historians still debate whether Marcus meant it metaphorically or tactically. Either way, the message is clear. Resistance is not your signal to retreat. It is your signpost for growth. That voice that says, don't write today, write anyway. The voice that says, you'll look foolish, speak anyway. The voice that says they won't care, show up anyway. Because here's the secret. Resistance is precise. It shows up exactly where your transformation wants to happen. It doesn't visit where you're already confident. It doesn't care about easy wins. It shows up right where your soul is stretching. And every time you obey it, you delay your own evolution. But every time you confront it, you claim new ground. The Stoics believed in forward motion, not reckless action, but purposeful advance. They didn't pray for smoother roads. They trained for steeper climbs. You must start training. 2. Begin with a simple rule. When resistance speaks, move toward it, not all at once. Not with heroic leaps, but with one intentional step. Feel too afraid to have the conversation? Write the first sentence. Feeling overwhelmed by a new challenge? Just open the file. Just tie the shoes. Just stand up. Break the spell of inaction, because resistance feeds on inertia, but action, any action, starves it, and over time, action becomes identity. You stop saying, "I'm the kind of person who avoids," and start living as someone who advances. Resistance also wears costumes. Sometimes it looks like perfectionism. I'll do it when I'm more ready. But readiness is a myth. The Stoics didn't wait for certainty. They acted with clarity, knowing that clarity often follows action, not the other way around. Other times, resistance disguises itself as false humility. Who am I to try this? The Stoic response: who are you not to try? Virtue is not reserved for the perfect. It is practiced by the present, and sometimes resistance comes wrapped in comfort. That soft chair, that soothing scroll, that familiar avoidance. But comfort is rarely aligned with growth. The Stoics knew this. That's why they practiced discomfort on purpose. Seneca once said, "Set aside now and then a number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself, 'Is this the condition that I feared?' Why? So that when true challenge arrived, it would not feel foreign. So that resistance would no longer intimidate. What you fear to face is the exact weight that will strengthen you if lifted. Tonight, identify your personal resistance. What are you avoiding? Not because it's wrong, but because it's difficult. What task, goal, or truth have you been circling around with excuses and distractions? Now ask, if I faced this, even briefly, how would I grow? Don't look for the dramatic win. Look for the training session. Treat resistance like you're sparring. Partner, it's not trying to defeat you. It's trying to sharpen you. It's there to be pressed against, not to be feared. The voice that says, "Stop," isn't always your enemy. It's your cue. Lean in. Take the swing. Begin the rep. When you move into resistance, even a little, you weaken the negative thinking that hides beneath it. And what you'll find, slowly, then suddenly, is that the more you push through resistance, the quieter it gets. You outpace the doubt. You outrun the avoidance. You build momentum, and momentum changes everything. With momentum, you stop overthinking and start doing. You stop dreading and start designing. You move not from panic, but from principle. Each act of defiance becomes a brick in the foundation of your self-respect. You don't have to win every time. You just have to move forward. Here's your Stoic drill. Identify the action you resist most today. Set a 5-minute timer. Do that thing. Even poorly, especially poorly. Then reflect. What changed? What grew stronger? Do this daily. Make resistance your compass, and soon you'll find that the voice of doubt no longer stops you. It sharpens you. You no longer freeze when resistance rises. You rise with it, because you no longer mistake the wall for a prison. You've realized the wall is the way. You feel something rise: anger, sadness, resentment, anxiety. And without thinking, you speak, you act, you lash out, or maybe you shut down. Whatever it is, You react before you even realize there was a choice. And that's the problem. You've forgotten that emotional expression, without discipline, is not freedom. It's chaos in a world obsessed with speaking your truth and feeling everything fully. The Stoic quietly walks another path, emotional austerity. Not coldness, not suppression, but mastery. It is the art of holding space between feeling and action. The ability to say, yes, I feel this, and no, I will not obey it blindly. This doesn't mean becoming robotic. It means becoming responsible. The Stoics felt deeply. Seneca grieved. Marcus Aurelius struggled with sorrow and despair. They were not indifferent. They were intentional. Seneca even wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." And emotional austerity is how the Stoic proves himself, not by feeling less, but by feeling fully without being dominated. Imagine your emotions like wild horses. Strength, beauty, power. But if untrained, they run you into walls, cliffs, destruction. If disciplined, they carry you forward, swiftly, powerfully, with purpose. Emotional austerity is learning to ride. Historians still discuss how much of the Stoics' composure was public image versus private practice. But the writings left behind speak for themselves. Clear, restrained, deeply reflective. And you, too, must begin the training. Start by noticing the automatic link between feeling and action. You feel hurt, you go silent. You feel slighted, you reply sharply. You feel afraid, you retreat. But what if you didn't? What if you sat with the flame instead of throwing it? Emotional austerity teaches this. Not every emotion deserves an audience. Not every wave needs to become a storm. You feel disappointment. Fine, you're human. But do you have to wear it all day? Speak from it. Live inside it. No? You can pause. You can ask, what is this teaching me? You feel sadness. Let it pass through, but don't hand it your schedule. Don't build a home for it in your identity. Let it float, not anchor. You feel shame. Acknowledge it. Ask, what does this voice protect me from? Then respond with compassion, not indulgence, not denial. You feel anger. Good. It means something matters. But now's not the time to throw punches. It's the time to sharpen understanding. Ask, what value is being threatened here? How can I defend it without losing myself? That's the Stoic method. Pause, examine, reframe, respond. And when you do this often enough, something changes. Your reflexes soften. Your inner world slows. And the gap between emotion and expression grows. This is emotional fasting. You are not starving yourself of feeling. You are refusing to binge on every impulse. And in that discipline, you gain access to a deeper layer of self-respect. Because here's the truth. When you react impulsively, it often feels good in the moment, but it costs you dignity. You yell and feel shame after. You spiral and lose hours. You insult and fracture trust. But when you pause, when you wait, when you choose not to react, you protect something sacred, your integrity. You become someone who does not hand over the steering wheel to a temporary emotion. And soon, you discover this power. You can feel disappointment without deciding you're a failure. You can feel loneliness without deciding no one cares. You can feel nervous without assuming you're not ready. You become someone who can feel fully but act wisely. Try this. Tomorrow, choose one emotion you often indulge. Maybe it's frustration. Maybe it's anxiety. Maybe it's guilt. Decide. Today, I will watch this emotion, not obey it. When it rises, don't stuff it down. Observe it. Talk to it. Say, I see you. You are valid, but you do not get to drive. Write it down. Track how often it appears. What triggers it? How long it lasts when you don't feed it. Journal what it's really about. Often, you'll discover the emotion is masking something deeper, an unmet need, a bruised memory, a tired nervous system. And by doing this, you gain clarity. You stop reacting from the surface. You start responding from the root. This practice of emotional austerity doesn't make you less human. It makes you more whole that you're no longer just a puppet to the mood of the moment. You're the captain, steady at the helm. Yes, the storm still rages, but you are trained. You are rooted. You are calm. And in that calm, you find power, not loud, not flashy, but real, lasting. You walk into the day not fragile, but fortified. And when others erupt, spiral, or flee, you remain. Not because you don't feel, but because you've practiced. Standing still, and that stillness, that's your strength that it's quiet now. At least outside. The room is still. The fan hums. The world has slowed. But inside your head, thoughts still pace like soldiers in boots. One footstep becomes another, then a sprint, then a chorus of fears, regrets, projections, hopes. A storm where there should be silence. This is why the Stoics practice something rare, something most people avoid, even in the deepest hours of night. Inner stillness, not just physical calm, not just environmental silence, but the kind of deep internal quiet that lets the soul speak clearly. The final battle against negative thinking is not fought with louder affirmations or tougher arguments. It is won in stillness, not passive, not vacant, but powerful, present. The Stoics knew this intimately. Marcus Aurelius, commander of armies, governor of a crumbling empire, father of loss, sought refuge not in castles or in comforts, but in a silent mind. He wrote, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free than your own soul." That stillness, he trained for it. And so must you. Historians often marvel at how someone so entangled in the chaos of ruling could find time, space, and clarity. The answer lies in his repetition. Stillness wasn't a gift. It was a practice that it began with attention. Stillness does not mean absence of thought. It means detachment from the noise. Thoughts come, yes, but they do not drag you with them. You don't grab onto every passing cloud. You let them drift. You become the sky, not the weather. This stillness kills negative thinking not by argument, but by oxygen deprivation. When you stop reacting, the negative thoughts lose their momentum. When you stop feeding them with belief, they fade. It's like watching a fire with no fuel. It dies slowly, quietly, and what remains is clarity. Clarity is not something you find on a motivational podcast. It's not in the next book or quote. It's found beneath the layers of your own chaos. After you've practiced long enough to peel them away how do you begin? 10 minutes. That's it. Each morning or each night, sit. Just sit. Eyes closed. Breathe. Not try to force the mind to stop. Just observe. Let the thought come. I forgot to email them back. I'm not good enough. This will never change. Fine. Watch it. Don't judge. Don't engage. Just see it. Let it pass like a car on the highway. Eventually, a strange thing happens. Your thoughts get tired of performing for an audience that doesn't react, and the deeper voice beneath them begins to emerge. The voice that says, "You are still. You are aware. You are enough." And it doesn't shout. It doesn't rush. It arrives slowly, like sunlight over frost. This voice isn't powered by ego. It's powered by alignment. By returning to the truth beneath the noise. This is the voice the Stoics listened for. The one that arises only in stillness. The one that doesn't come from the world, but from within. Stillness teaches you a vital lesson. Not every thought needs a response. Negative thinking thrives on engagement. It's like a salesman. It speaks fast, insists loudly, demands you answer. Stillness says, you don't have to open the door. When someone insults you, you pause. When a mistake happens, you pause. When panic rises, you pause. And in that pause, in that deep breath, stillness steps forward and whispers, "Let's see clearly before we move." This is the opposite of modern culture, which says, do something, say something, react now. The Stoic says, wait. In that waiting, you reclaim your power. You begin to realize that 90% of the time, your suffering wasn't from the situation. It was from your rushed interpretation. Stillness lets you see the gap between what happened and what you assumed it meant. That silence after someone doesn't text back, it doesn't mean rejection. That change of tone in a conversation, it doesn't mean betrayal. That bad day, it doesn't mean failure. It just means pause. It means return to reason, return to breath, return to stillness. This return is your discipline. It's not glamorous. No one claps when you pause instead of snapping back. But in that pause, you're saving yourself days of regret. You're saving your energy. You're conserving your dignity. And with practice, that silence becomes a sanctuary. It's where you go when the world is too loud. It's where you go when your thoughts are too cruel. It's where you go when you forget who you are. And in that sacred space, you remember, you are not the emotion. You are not the fear. You are not the thought. You are the space where all of it passes without staining who you are. This kind of mastery doesn't happen in one night, but each time you sit in stillness, you reinforce the muscle. Each time you choose to breathe before reacting, you reinforce your power. Each time you stay silent, not from fear, but from strength, you reinforce your identity. That identity becomes unshakable, not because nothing touches you, but because you don't move when it does. Stillness becomes your superpowered SO tonight. Sit for 10 minutes. No phone, no podcast, no journal, just you, just breath, just space. Let the thoughts come. Let them go, and realize you don't need to control the world to find peace. You just need to control your response. And stillness is the space where that control begins. You scroll, you stress, you replay the moment you wish you handled better. You lie awake scripting conversations that may never happen. You plan, worry, replan, predict. You try to control everything. People, outcomes, perceptions, timelines. And without noticing, your peace has been placed on a leash, tethered to things you never truly owned. This is the great misstep of the anxious mind, trying to control what isn't yours. The Stoics knew this well, and they drew a sharp line, a sacred division between what belongs to you and what doesn't. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Historians still debate whether Marcus ever truly found peace amid the weight of an empire. But his writings reveal a man who, every single day, redrew the boundary. My mind equals mine. The rest, not mine. You, too, must draw that line. Because when you carry what isn't yours, you exhaust your spirit. You cannot control whether they reply. You cannot control if they understand. You cannot control the market, the traffic, the mood of a stranger, or the direction of the wind, but you can control your interpretation. You can control your tone. You can control whether you stay grounded or spiral. That's your domain. And it's plenty. When you focus on what you can control, you become powerful. Not because the world changes, but because you do. And that is the entire Stoic secret. The goal is not control over the world. The goal is clarity within it. Oh, let's make this practical. Start your day with a control filter. You wake up and ask, what's mine to carry today? What's not? What's my responsibility? What's just noise? Then act accordingly. Did someone insult you? Not yours. Your response to the insult? Yours. Did something go wrong at work? Not all yours. How you speak about it, show up after it, and reflect on it? All yours. Even your body, to some extent, is not fully yours. Health shifts. Accidents happen. But your attitude, your breath, your choices in the face of it, those are yours. This filter becomes your peacekeeper. When you stop trying to hold the reins of the universe, your hands become free to steer what truly matters. Your thoughts, your values, your choices. Imagine you're walking through a storm. The rain falls sideways. The wind is relentless. You cannot stop the storm, but you can choose how to walk through it. Will you scream at the sky, or will you lower your shoulders, steady your steps, and keep going? The Stoic does not curse the weather. The Stoic trains for rain. You train your focus to stay where it belongs, on your response, your reasoning, your integrity. And when you do that, the outside world begins to lose its grip on your mood. Not because it becomes easier, but because you become anchored. Think of a ship in violent waters. What keeps it steady? The anchor. You don't silence the waves. You secure the core. That core is your locus of control. Every time you worry about how someone might react, remind yourself, not mine. Every time you replay a moment already past, not mine. Every time you spiral over outcomes you can't guarantee, not mine. That's not detachment. That's discipline. And when something is yours, own it. Your tone, your words, your effort, your patience, your humility, your courage. Those are the weights you must lift daily. Those are the parts of the world that are yours to shape, and they are more than enough. Try this. Tonight, draw 2 columns. Left, what's mine? Right, what's not? Write everything weighing on your mind. Then divide it. You'll be surprised. Most of what's drowning you isn't yours to hold, and when you let it go, even mentally, you'll feel something rare, relief without retreat that you're not escaping the world. You're organizing it. This discipline is what lets the Stoic walk through chaos without becoming chaotic. It's what lets you love people without needing to control them. It's what lets you work hard without tying your self-worth to the outcome. You still show up fully. You just stop clinging. And in that space, clarity blooms. You'll feel lighter. Not because life gets easier, but because you've stopped dragging the unnecessary. This is how the Stoic lives free, not because they have no problems, but because They know which problems are theirs. So tomorrow, when anxiety whispers its to-do list of everything you must fix, respond with stillness and say, "Let me first sort what's mine, then choose what to carry, and walk forward in peace." That it's easy to forget what you have when your eyes are always on what someone else does. You see their highlight reels. You compare their milestones to your missteps, their calm to your chaos, their ease to your exhaustion. And without realizing it, you're living your life as if it's a competition you never agreed to enter. This is the subtle, corrosive weight of comparison. And if you want to kill your negative thinking, you must stop measuring your worth with someone else's ruler. The Stoics were not immune to this temptation. Even in the ancient world, comparison was real. Who was more respected? Who gained more influence? Whose philosophy earned more followers? But they warned against it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, ambition means tying your well-being to what other people say or do. Sanity means tying it to your own actions. Seneca echoed, no man is crushed by misfortune unless he has first been deceived by prosperity. In other words, comparison distorts what matters. It blinds you to your own path by seducing you with someone else's. Today, we compare faster than ever. Social media feeds you a constant stream of curated lives. You don't see the struggle, the discipline, the self-doubt behind those images. You just see the results and assume you're behind. But behind what? There is no universal scoreboard, no master clock. You are not late to anything. You are not disqualified because you haven't done enough by age 30, 40, 60. Life isn't a race. It's a direction. And the Stoic knows that comparison is a lie told by a distracted mind. So how do you untangle yourself from it? You begin by reclaiming your standards. Ask yourself, what do I truly value? What matters most to me, not to them? What would I pursue even if no one applauded? Your answers are your compass. When you don't know your own standards, you default to someone else's. And that's when resentment sets in, because you're chasing a life that doesn't even fit you. But when you know your values, comparison becomes irrelevant. You stop asking, am I doing enough? And start asking, am I doing what aligns? Try this. Tomorrow morning, before checking any device, write down 3 things you're doing right in your own life. Not compared to others. Just you. What's growing? What are you showing up for? What's improved from last year? Then write down one small way you've chosen your own path this week. Even if no one noticed, these tiny acknowledgments build armor. They remind you that progress is not always visible. That value is not always viral. That peace doesn't look like achievement. It often looks like quiet, steady alignment. Stoicism trains you to narrow your field of comparison, not to a million strangers, but to yourself. Ask, am I a bit more patient than I was? Did I handle that conversation with more grace than last time? Did I pause when I used to panic? These are your victories. No one will clap for them, but they count more than any follower count. And when you do feel the tug of comparison, because it will come, practice this simple Stoic redirection. Don't say, I wish I had what they have. Say instead, I wonder what they've practiced that I haven't yet. This reframes envy into curiosity. It moves you from self-pity to self-mastery. The Stoics weren't interested in being better than others. They were interested in being better than their former selves. That's your only competition, the person you used to be. And sometimes, winning means doing the hard thing quietly, choosing character over comfort, choosing discipline when no one watches, choosing peace when ego wants a fight. These are the victories that shape a soul. So next time you feel behind, ask, behind whose timeline? Next time you feel small, ask, am I shrinking, or am I simply not inflating myself like they are? Next time you feel invisible, ask, what am I doing today that aligns with who I want to become? Because visibility is overrated. Alignment is everything. Comparison distracts. Alignment clarifies. The Stoics stand still while the world races by. Not because they're lazy, but because they've stopped running toward illusions. They walk their path with presence. And that presence, that is your superpower. Tonight, sit with this mantra. I release the need to compete. My only duty is to improve my character. Say it slowly. Let it settle. And in that space, you'll feel the burden lift. The urgency fade. The anxiety dissolve. Because you are exactly where you need to be. Not because it's perfect, but because it's yours. And that is more than enough. It hits you without warning. Failure, loss, heartbreak, the unraveling of something you were sure would hold. You feel the sting, the gut drop, the internal voice whispering, not again. You tighten up, you brace, and somewhere deep inside, a darker voice creeps in. Maybe this means you're not meant for more. But what if that pain, yes, this exact pain, was not a punishment? What if your setback is sacred? To kill your negative thinking, you must transform how you see adversity. The Stoics didn't just accept hardship, they revered it. They didn't see setbacks as cruel. They saw them as crucibles, necessary fires that refine the soul. Marcus Aurelius, in the thick of war and plague, wrote, "The mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to our acting. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Historians still wrestle with the tone of those words. Was he comforting himself or declaring a universal truth? Either way, the lesson remains. What hurts you now may be shaping who you are meant to become, because here's what pain does. It strips away illusion. It reveals what was fragile, what was fake, what was never rooted in your true values. Loss makes you look harder at what remains. Failure forces you to clarify your why. Heartbreak teaches you what love must include next time. Every time something falls apart, a blueprint is drawn, not of who you were, but of who you could become. The Stoics knew that adversity didn't just reveal character, it forged it. And that's what you must begin to believe tonight. Your struggles are not setbacks. They are sacred assignments. But to see this clearly, you must pause. Instead of spiraling, step back. Instead of asking, why me? Ask, what is this training? Maybe it's patience. Maybe it's courage. Maybe it's the strength to walk away. Maybe it's the discipline to stay still. Whatever the lesson, trust that it's here, and know it won't always be obvious. Sometimes life knocks you down so fast and so hard that clarity takes time. But eventually, if you reflect deeply enough, you'll see it. The seed hidden inside the ash that hears your Stoic practice. After every painful event, big or small, complete this sentence. This is teaching me to. It doesn't have to be noble. Sometimes it's simple. This is teaching me to slow down. Or this is teaching me to value what I ignored. Or this is teaching me to ask for help. And over time, This becomes your default setting, not victimhood, but vision, because the truth is, every broken moment you survive expands your emotional range. It gives you access to empathy, wisdom, depth, qualities you don't build in comfort. Think of your character like a sword. No sword is forged in softness. It's shaped in fire, hammered by force, cooled in stillness, tested under pressure. Your setbacks? That's your fire. Your pressure, your test, and how you respond to them. That's your shaping. When you say, "This pain will not go to waste," you reclaim your power. When you say, "I will mine this moment for meaning," you grow beyond the wound, not by suppressing the hurt, but by walking through it on purpose. The Stoics didn't deny grief. They honored it, studied it, allowed it to do its work, but they didn't let it make them bitter. They let it make them bettered. That's your charge too. Bitterness is the default of the untrained mind, but you're training now. You are becoming someone who can feel the weight without letting it bury you. Someone who can be knocked down and get up with more clarity than before. So next time something doesn't go your way, say, "This too belongs," not because it's pleasant, but because it's part of the process, part of becoming someone unshakable. Try this. Tonight, recall one of your past setbacks, something that hurt, something that lingered. Then ask, what did that moment reveal about me? What did I learn? Who did I become afterward that I wasn't before? Write your answers. Sit with them. Because when you find meaning in your past pain, you train your brain to do the same in present struggles. You weaken the spiral. You kill the story that suffering is senseless. Instead, suffering becomes sacred, that it's no longer the end. It's the turning point. You stop asking, "How do I avoid pain?" and start asking, "How can I make this pain count?" That's Stoic alchemy, turning misfortune into meaning. And the more you practice it, the more resilient you become, not brittle, but bendable, not numb, but wise, not immune to pain, but fluent in how to translate it. Tonight. Breathe in this truth. My setbacks shape me. My scars are scriptures. I walk forward not despite them, but because of them. Let that truth settle in your bones. And the next time life tries to break you, you'll remember, it's not breaking you, it's building you. Pain arrives uninvited. It lingers longer than it should. It whispers things into your bones. You're broken. You're unlucky. You can't take any more. And slowly, silently, that pain starts to change how you move through the world. You brace before connection. You hesitate before hope. You flinch when anything good appears, afraid that it might hurt you next. But tonight, that pattern ends. Because tonight, you learn to make your suffering serve you. The Stoics never claimed life would be easy. In fact, they insisted it wouldn't be. But they also taught that suffering, if approached with awareness and strength, can become your greatest teacher. Seneca said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Historians still wonder how much of Seneca's philosophy was practiced during his wealth and political power. But his writings show this. Suffering, real suffering, clarifies what luxury never can. The same is true for you. Pain doesn't have to define you, but it can refine you. Let's begin here. Suffering is not weakness. It's not punishment. It is raw material. What you build from it is what defines you. Your heartbreak can become your humility. Your failure can become your focus. Your regret can become your realignment, but only if you choose that path, because most people don't. They resent the pain. They ruminate. They replay. They let it rot inside them, turning sharp moments into chronic poison. That's when pain becomes destructive, not in the moment, but in the echo. You don't need to silence the pain. You need to shape it. The Stoics trained for this. They welcomed adversity because they believed it revealed truth. A man in comfort may lie to himself. A man in pain cannot. Marcus Aurelius would ask, "What am I without this title, this ease, this applause?" In suffering, he found the answer. Still a man of virtue. If I choose to be, that's your question now. Who are you in the face of loss? In the heat of failure? In the silence of disappointment? Answer that, and you're shaping your character. Try this. Take one current struggle, physical, emotional, relational, and ask 3 Stoic questions. What virtue is this training in me? Patience, courage, forgiveness. What illusion is this pain exposing? Control, entitlement, certainty. How can I grow through this? Not just go through it. Write your answers down. Don't overthink. Be raw. Be precise. This is not about making the pain worth it. It's about refusing to let the pain waste you. Because when you engage with suffering, not with resistance, but with curiosity, it becomes compost. Fertile, transformative. Suffering turns your ego into empathy, your arrogance into presence, your fantasy into discipline. You begin to see pain not as your enemy, but as your sharpening stone. And this doesn't mean you chase pain. It means you stop fleeing from it. You stop resenting it. You sit with it long enough to ask, what is this here to teach me? And you wait for the answer, because pain speaks in whispers, not shouts. But when you learn to listen, it gives you back your power, not the kind of power that's loud or dominant, but the kind of power that walks through fire without flinching. This is the kind of power the Stoics cultivated. And so can you. Each time you let pain pass through without attaching to it, without dramatizing it, you train your nervous system to hold more, to breathe deeper, to see clearer. Each time you respond with reason instead of reaction, you reclaim space inside yourself. And eventually, that inner space becomes your sanctuary, a place pain cannot poison, only pass through. That here's your Stoic drill. Choose a pain from your past that still stings. Write a letter to that version of yourself, not to soothe, but to translate. Say, here's what you missed in that moment. Here's what you carried out of it. Here's who you became because of it. And then read it aloud. Hear your own strength reflected back. That you'll notice something powerful. That past pain gave birth to present depth. That old loss became new insight. That regret became wisdom. Suffering didn't weaken you. It introduced you to yourself. The next time life wounds you, remember, this is sacred ground. And you are not a victim. You are a sculptor, hammering away what is false to reveal what is true. You are not lost. You are being reforged. Let that truth steady your breath tonight. Let it soften your resentment. Let it quiet the spiral, because you are no longer afraid of pain. You have learned to use it, and that is a power the world cannot take. You lie there now, still, breathing, listening. The world has softened. The buzz of the day has faded into background hum. And inside you, something has shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, like a door unlocking from the inside. Tonight, You've taken your first real steps into the fortress of your mind. And you've discovered that reason is not cold, it's calm. That discipline is not rigidity, it's self-respect. That killing negative thinking isn't about shouting over it, but outgrowing it. You've walked through fire with the Stoics at your side, that you've stood still when emotion tried to drag you, that you've questioned the voice in your head until it softened into silence. And now you return again and again to that inner stillness, that anchored state where nothing outside can shake the foundation you've been building. Marcus Aurelius wasn't born calm. He trained for calm. He wrote, rewrote, reflected. He failed, returned, and practiced again. His greatness was not fate, it was repetition. So here is your final lesson, the thread that ties it all. Return to reason, night after night, because you will forget that you'll wake tomorrow and the world will try to pull you back. Someone will cut you off in traffic. A comment will sting. An old fear will rise again. You'll feel doubt whisper, "It's not working," and you'll be tempted to believe it. But that's when you return to breath, to your journal, to stillness, to your stoic core. You don't need perfection. You need presence. Every time you feel the spiral start, pause. Place your hand on your chest. Feel the breath move. And say, "This is a moment, not a verdict. I remain." Because you are no longer the person who obeys every fear. You are no longer the one who lets emotion hijack your clarity. You are the watcher, the decider, the writer of your story. And your story is not one of panic or victimhood or shame. It's a story of practice, a story of quiet mastery, a story of building a mind that cannot be broken because it's built on values, not validation. This work is not always seen, but it's always felt. Your loved ones may not know what changed, but they'll feel your steadiness, your patience, your soft strength, and you'll know you did this. So tonight, breathe deep. Feel the weight lift, not because the world is lighter, but because you've learned what to carry. Return to this practice as many times as it takes. The Stoics did. Marcus returned to his journal every single night. He didn't write for others. He wrote for himself, for his soul, for the man he was still becoming. The same. Keep the practice. Revisit your thoughts. Reframe your stories. Pause before reacting. Choose clarity over chaos. Choose peace, not as a prize, but as a path. You have killed the myth that negative thinking is you. Now, you become what you were meant to be, not someone who never struggles, but someone who always returns. Let your body grow heavier now. The muscles in your shoulders soften. Your jaw loosens. Your breath settles into a slow, natural rhythm. There's nothing left to fix tonight. No one to impress. No deadlines. No proving. Just you and this moment. You are safe here. Let the thoughts still swirling begin to drift outward like leaves on a stream. Watch them pass. Don't chase them. Don't name them. Just let them go. You are not your thoughts. You are the calm space in which those thoughts pass. And in that space, you rest. Picture yourself now on a quiet shoreline. The ocean is dark and wide. Waves come in steady, slow, and soft. Each one rising, curling, breaking gently, then pulling back with a long hushed. That's your breath now. In and out, in and out. The stars above don't rush. The tide doesn't worry. You don't need to. Either that you've done enough today that you've returned to your center. You've reclaimed your mind. You've reminded yourself that even when the world is noisy, You can be still that you've remembered that pain has a purpose, that thoughts are not commands, that your worth does not rise and fall with someone else's approval. You've remembered that you are the author now. As sleep begins to take your hand, walk with it gently. Let it lead you into quiet. There is nothing to fear in the silence. There is only room for healing, room for clarity, room for peace. Tomorrow, you'll rise with this same calm. And if you forget, you'll return, because that's who you are now. Someone who does not run from the dark, but walks through it with eyes open, breath steady, and a mind sharpened by truth. Good night, Stoic soul, that you've earned your rest. Sweet dreams.